A couple things to hit pre-show, and then we'll go into the show. I don't have a lot from my side. I will say that I have completed the position of MVP, uh, the Bush slice method, the Bush LR, and other variables, games played, things like, receptions, targets, rushing, fantasy points per game. So all that's available for 2020 to 2024. So I got 5 years. That's all
Wow.
done. Uh, so I've just got to stack them into one giant data set after I get back from my playtime. And yeah, and I will use various methods, and I will create figures for our little experiment that we're going to do at the expo. We probably should, if you get a chance, maybe you can reach out to Bob Lung. Just does he mind us tipping the hand a little bit, making a little noise, or does he kind of want to see things before he, you know what I'm saying? I don't,
Yeah,
before we start screaming at things, make sure that he's on board. I mean, it's his,
yeah,
his show. I don't want to step on, you know, we're an opening act. I don't want to
correct,
not
correct.
keep that gig going for next year. So,
No,
but you
no.
see what I'm saying? I don't know if you
Yeah,
can just kind of gently reach out and
I
say,
will. I will. I'll give
do
him an
you mind
update.
us,
Yeah,
on our podcast maybe or on Twitter, just kind of starting to circle to what he's going to let us do there?
yeah. I'll
Okay.
I'll
Why
I'll
don't you
touch
do
base with
that?
him in the next couple of days. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I'm going
just
to
to make sure
probably
we
be
got.
I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be okay, but I'm just taking my cell phone, so I don't know having never been in uh, Scotland, I have no clue how the reception is. We're going to be in Edinburgh, Glasgow, Inverness, and various castles and locks and
Very cool.
battlefields.
Now, did you bring yourself a power converter for your
Yes,
phone charger?
I
Yeah,
bought two.
good.
Yeah, for that. Yeah, I got to have the power converter. So I bought
Yeah,
two.
good, good. Smart move.
Yeah,
Smart move.
yeah. So we got that and whatnot. So we'll see what it's all about. And anyway, so yeah, you might want to reach out, just see what's going on. And with that
Yeah.
said, assuming everything's okay, when I get back, I'm going to start doing some things. And Dennis, part of I think my thinking over the years is if I'm treating you as my graduate student to talk about principal component, you need to be trained up a little bit. People
I
might
love
ask
that.
questions.
Yes. I love that.
So I'm
Yes.
going to I'm going to train you up a little bit, not to worry so much about the theory or the math, but more how to use it, right? It's kind of like,
Right.
you know, uh, having my roommate going to various schools, Bob, who's an engineer, he took stats, and it was the calculus based theory of where these stat equations come from. For
Yeah.
us, the dummies in algebra, we just had to learn how to use the equations and interpret the data,
Right.
kind of more how to drive a car versus make an engine. You, the theory on how to make it happen. So, uh, Dennis, I've had a little bit understanding some of it, but I'm more the applied side. My friend, who's more the math side, he's an ornithologist, but he taught our informatics, our stats, our biometry. So he's taught multiple stats over the years and corrected me a lot of times. And I would ask him over the years for discussion on horse racing and stats and probability and things. So a lot of my education came from him, but uh, he understands the math at the calculus differential equation, where these
Oh yeah.
things came from and
Yep.
what does it mean. Versus
Yeah.
me, it's like, well, Bill, kind of give me an interpretation. And then once I got that, I'd go back to him and say, Bill, here this is what I'm thinking. Am I interpreting it right? And he, yeah,
Yeah.
no. So I've kind of had a little bit depth, but not to where I could derive the equations that are the underpinning for these stats, right?
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. I had two relatively advanced statistics courses and
Mm-hmm.
then statistical meteorology.
Yeah,
And then there was a lot of statistics in my biometeorology classes as
yeah.
well.
So you had to
Um,
apply it, but
I had to apply it. I was not, yeah, I didn't have to
like I said,
worry
my
about,
friend, when what I would do like chi-square analysis, I'd sit there, well, Bob, here I've got to do these. He said, yeah, we've got to start at ground zero and derive the equations. And here's all. So he goes through all the math and this is why it works. And it's like, huh? I become a dummy at that point. So,
yes.
but he took the engineering stats and I took the biology
Mhm.
dummy stats, for a year at Texas A&M. So he understood where the equations came from, and I didn't. I just knew how to use the SAS and whatnot. And so anyway, I'm going to try to talk you through some of the applied side
Perfect.
of the
Perfect.
data to you
I could
know
use a refresher course.
yeah. So
I really
we'll
could.
just
Yeah.
so when people come up and you can hold your own or at least and whatnot, and it's good. So we're going to train you up because this is not just this year, Dennis. This
This
is
is a big deal.
training.
Yeah.
This is what you and I, this is our journey together. So instead of me, kind of chopping your wood, Dennis, I'm going to make you learn a little bit, just like my students. We have to
Yeah.
be kicking and screaming a little bit,
Yeah, I'm good
and
with that.
it's
I'm good
good
with
for
that.
everybody.
Yeah, I'm
And
good with that.
yeah, yeah,
I will still, and this is, so I kind of think there's a system here.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
In that a lot of times on things, I'm going to still defer to you to explain it because you are better at teaching
yeah.
different things than I am. That's what you've done your whole life.
Pretty much, it feels
Yeah.
like it. Yeah,
Yeah, for a long, long time. So you've got that experience of understanding how to teach it, but also of how to read the person, read the
yeah,
student
yeah,
as to
yeah,
figuring out, are they really picking this up or are they
yeah.
trying to just bullshit you?
It can be that can be tricky too. But anyway,
It can
we're
be
going to
tricky,
do
but
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you have a sense about you, and
Yeah.
it showed last year at the expo when
Now hold it now, Dennis,
yeah,
because people don't don't get too much in the weeds. But yes,
I won't get specific, but you could tell
I was. There were various individuals that I was like, versus
you're a
some
truth
that were
meter.
like, oh, this is. There's gravitas, right? Greg
Yeah.
Kellogg, Coventry. Some of the other ones I met, there was some depth here, and some other ones. We not not going to say anything, Dennis. Right?
No,
Grandma said, "Don't
no.
say anything bad if you don't know
We're
anything good to say."
we're always going to be nice.
I
And
search for
yeah,
the heavy thinkers, the depth, because that's what I learned. I don't want to be if you're the sharpest cat in the room, you're in the wrong room, Dennis. That's what I
Oh
always
yeah,
heard. I
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
where the smarties are so y'all can tell me, help me learn, right? So
That's
anyway,
always the goal. The old,
yeah,
there are so many people, and I won't mention names, but
yeah,
there are so many people that as they gain followers in fantasy football, it starts going to their head. They start thinking, oh, because I have 20,000 followers on Twitter, I'm really smart at this. And, you know, what I have discovered is some of the smartest people in the fantasy football industry, they don't share their knowledge with others. They're the silent assassins that I've stumbled across in leagues. And they're more knowledgeable. They might have like 175 followers on Twitter. They're more knowledgeable than those with 50,000 or 100,000. The guys with more followers are better noisemakers. They're not necessarily better at the strategy side of this game, and that's fine. That's wonderful. I'm a great noisemaker
yeah,
in other industries. I'm good at making the noise, but you know, in ultimate football, I can make noise. I can call an exciting game. I know the lingo, but I'm a 20 percenter in my actual knowledge of the game. And again, I'm probably being meaner to myself than I need to. I probably understand it more than I think I do. But having a little bit, and yeah, I got a big enough ego to go around, but I'm also smart enough to realize that I won't always be right. And when you can do that in any industry, I think you grow because you do attempt to surround yourself with the smarter people that are, and again, it doesn't have to be the most famous. It's just the people that really prove to you that they know their stuff. And I'm gonna toot your horn because you don't toot it enough. The way you talked at the expo, you were quite often, well, I'm just doing this. Professor, you are more
Dennis,
knowledgeable than the 95, 99% of the people out there. You just don't need to, you don't need to brag on yourself. And that's, but if I had to go into a battle of fantasy football wits, man, I'm taking my homie with me.
yeah.
Like,
Now, now,
because you
now,
can.
now, Dennis, let me tell you, have I had self-reflection? I wasn't, we're getting into what I know about myself is I don't have a lot of time my instant thinking. I don't like to do that. I like to sit back and think,
Yes,
and that I don't see enough of that out
yes,
there. People want to solve it in a like, well, what do you think? This or that? That it's like, okay, me, I'm not going to, I mean, if it's something obvious, okay. But if it's something close, like some of your player by player decisions, which I wanted to, hit some of those articles, got four out, Dennis. You hadn't tooted your horn, but just one. But we got three more I put out.
yeah,
It takes some thinking about that. And that's what, and you can't teach that. And I don't know if that's confidence. I don't know if, I don't know where the idea got that if I don't answer in 2 seconds, I'm a dummy, or I'm scared if people will think I don't know anything if I'm. that I'll tell you what, that is, if people are judging you like that, folks, you should be around those people, because thoughtful people understand and like to be around thoughtful people, and not just, yeah, this or that, this, and move on. It's like, you know, it's the bacon and eggs, Dennis. I've told you that, right? The chicken lays the eggs, you cook the egg, chicken's gone, but the bacon, Dennis, the pig's there. It never leaving. That bacon's there. So I want to be the bacon. I don't want to be the eggs. I want to be not involved. I want to be embedded. Do not want to just kind of I'm gonna buzz around. I'm gonna do this, do that. That's just lightweight. I wouldn't be doing this if that's what I was doing. I'd find something else. I like to get deep, Dennis.
But
I don't like to,
yes.
flip around a little bit. And I think some people lack confidence. Some students over the years, I knew they were, because when I would grade their test, I'd be like, hold it now. Why aren't you answering my questions? Or why, you and I need to talk a little bit. And I found some really sharp folks just didn't want to. I don't know what it is, didn't want to step up. And I understand, not everybody's going to do that. But folks, it's best to be thoughtful. And like I said, for Dennis and I, it's a 10-year journey. I'm just going to say average lifespan for me, I'm 65, be 75. Hopefully I live longer. Hope so. Hope Dennis lives longer.
Oh God,
But
yeah.
we got a journey, and I need to teach him up on things, because if I'm not here, I still want him to move forward with what we're doing, and push it and find other people
And,
and
and that
whatnot.
that has actually been our whole way of doing things,
Yeah.
because when we get data done, folks, we share it with each other right
Oh yeah.
away,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we aren't confident at our age that we won't not
Who
wake up
knows?
someday. You
Yeah.
you just you it's not morbid to talk about that. It's
Well,
you
it's
know
just
it's sensible.
stats. Look, we're stats guys. We understand averages. We understand,
Yeah.
expectations, and I don't expect to live to 100 years old.
But
Uh,
here is why I think both of us have this aversion to the instant decision, because here's how it goes in horse racing, folks.
yeah,
You have 35 minutes to the first race. You
yes, you
get
do.
you get checked in, you find a seat, you get your program, you get your daily racing form, and you're sitting down, and you've got 35 minutes before that first race. You don't have to come up with the answer to who you're betting at the 30-minute mark or even the 20-minute mark.
No.
You've got time to think. And it was the same thing in the weather forecasting game. So I'd get in 6:30 every morning, on the day shift, and I knew I had a 10 o'clock briefing. Okay. That was, well, actually 9 o'clock briefing, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. I had a 9 o'clock briefing. So I had 2.5 hours to get ready for this big briefing where 90% of the decisions would be made for how well that day was going to go nationwide. And that was it. That was the whole thing you prepared for the minute you came in. If it was a quiet day, I'd go downstairs to the cafeteria and get some breakfast, because I'm like, this is going to be an easy day. On tough days, I wouldn't do that. I might have a cup of coffee, and that was it. And otherwise, I made sure that I ate breakfast before I got there. I had, little things to munch on, because you weren't leaving that desk until you had the answer. And that's kind of fantasy football to me, because if I'm 10 picks away, I could start formulating who I'm picking. I get 5 picks away. I want to be pretty sure of who I'm taking within a group of players. When I'm 5 away, Professor,
Yeah.
I want to know one quarterback, one tight end that I might take. And I want 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers. So now I'm 5 picks away. I have 8 players in mind. And sometimes it'll be 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends, but always have one on that docket, except for the first round. I'm not taking a quarterback in the first round in 1 quarterback draft. But that's the way I've trained my brain so I don't feel the need to have a snap decision when I see a poll or I see somebody mention this guy or that guy. I have a feeling based on my rankings who I might like better. Like if we're comparing CeeDee Lamb and Malik Neighbors, I got an idea of which way I might go with that decision, but I can see both sides of that forecast. You should have every player, when I mention a name, any fantasy football player who really knows his stuff, especially the people that call themselves an expert on Twitter, they should be able to give you 3 positive and 3 negative on every single player in the league.
Or if you want to really give the editor a heart attack, you just start giving away the farm, Dennis, with all your articles we're going to talk about. Here you go. Let's just cut everybody's wood for them, Dennis. And, you need to make them think a little bit. And folks, if he saves you time, it's great. But when I read it, after the editor's done, I like to read it one last time. I like to think about what he's thinking. But to me, it's not bad, but June, I don't, if something were to happen, like somebody injured themselves or
Oh,
something
yeah.
crazy, this could all change. So
Yes.
just be aware that, you know, what Dennis is saying in June is not the story, September 1st
No,
necessarily.
no. And there will be a
The
lot of things that
ADP could flip flop, it could
ADP could
change.
change.
I mean,
Yes.
so
Yep.
there's a value component, your draft pick, where you're at. And again, I love slow drafts, kind of finishing the circuit there on the instant decision. What
Oh,
was the debate? They were debating 30-second clock
20,
versus 20-second.
20 second. Yeah.
Here's what it is. Okay, I'm going to be boiled to death. Do I care if you set the pot at 400 degrees or 410? Look, you know, unless you've got your diary that says you're so damn good you can make 100% great decisions in 20 seconds, why do you? Yeah, okay. The advantage, now I can see the advantage. The advantage is if everybody's kind of Looney Tunes in such a thing and everybody's just, shooting from the hip, if you've got yourself trained, I could see an advantage. But for me, my thinking, it would have to be almost game time, week 1, before I think I understood everything, like
Oh, yeah.
September
Yeah.
6th.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I've actually done some drafts. I just feel a little bored. Okay, I'll do a minute draft. But Dennis, that's like right, the Wednesday before the Thursday game. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've already done mocks, I've done best balls, I've done lots of other drafting. You and I have chewed through it. I thought about a lot of concepts and things. I think I'm as ready to go, and I'm not putting all my bankroll in 20-second drafts.
No,
Okay.
no, no.
So I'm just saying, folks, keep your diary. And if you are winning at 20-second drafts, but losing at 30-second drafts, I don't know what that would mean. I'd have to think about that. But
Well, here,
I didn't understand all the rah-rah, but they were people rah-rahing
oh,
about that.
they were insanely invested in this argument over 10 seconds. And
What?
here was the gist of the whole thing.
Okay.
They were upset that it was taking 10 minutes for a draft to fill and to start.
Oh my goodness.
10
Minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
Professor, when I join an FPPC slow draft,
Oh yeah.
it
Could
could
take days.
take 2 days, three
Yeah.
days to fill.
3 days. That's true.
Who cares?
August
Like,
it starts picking up, but
yes.
July it's going to be slow.
Yeah. And so if I am committing to doing a fantasy football draft and I'm saying, okay, I got the next hour, I'm ready to do one of these fantasy football drafts. Do I care if we start drafting the minute I say yes, or in 10 minutes, no, I do not? Like, are are you that, are these people like waiting on a waiting on a train and they got 5 minutes and
I think there's
they
some
want to do a
adrenaline
draft? I mean,
junkies, something like I got to go, go, go,
it's
go.
weird.
Yeah,
Well,
if
here,
you're hanging off a rock face, Dennis, it's like, I'm not going to be able to climb this mountain, so I might as well do a 10-minute draft here. Come on,
yeah,
folks.
and here was the thing is,
Come on.
so people have done the stats on this. Okay,
Yeah.
they have entered the data, they've taken the probabilities.
Yeah.
Now this is just saying, okay, if I'm an average player,
Okay.
if you're a better than average player, your odds are going to increase. Okay. But I have seen people do these. Okay, you can only have 10 entries in this one of these big tournaments, yada, yada, yada. What are your chances? What are the chances of the average person? What do the stats say? It says 89% lose money, 11% are winners in one of these big tournaments. That's horrible. Like, I want the odds better than that of cash. That's just cashing. That's making a profit. I've got 3 chances in 12 in a regular best ball, 12 team best ball league. Just if I'm an average player, I got 3 chances to cash versus an 11%. Now, I don't have a chance in my $3.12 guy draft to win $200,000. But it's like playing the lottery. It really is. I don't care how great you are at fantasy football, winning that $1 million prize or $200,000 prize or even $20,000 prize in one of these big, 400,000 people tournament. It comes down to a lot of luck, more so than when you're in a 12 team draft, you got 11 people to beat and you got 3 places to cash. I would rather invest my money in that than take a shot at the lotto. This is just lotto dressed up as fantasy football. If I'm really good at best ball, I might double my odds of winning. So that maybe 22%. If I'm the best player in the world, I might triple my chance. So that's a 33% chance of winning. I would rather grind out a profit, because 33% of winning doesn't mean 33% of winning a big prize, because they drop off fast. 20,000 for first, 1,500 for second. I mean, they drop off really fast. And you're probably just cashing enough to make a small profit anyway. Why not do that in more leagues, grabbing the first place money out of 12 suckers? To me, that's a smarter way to invest your bankroll. If you enjoy it, God love you. But keep your stats. And if you are, there are people, Professor, that will play $5,000 in these tournaments on underdog, and they won't win their money back. Like, they will lose a couple $1,000s every year, I'd stop doing it. To me, I'm not going to chase that $1 million prize forever. And to me, it's just a weird argument to have whether, how bad 20 is. I got to wait 30 seconds before that guy picks. Oh my goodness. That's going to be the end of your life as we know it.
Agree.
All right, Professor, are we ready to get this?
I think we are.
Here we go. We got the philosopherizing out of the way. It's now time to jump into the meat and potatoes of the show. Here we go.
Yep.
How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use a scientific method, and that is guaranteed to make you a better fantasy football player. How can I give a guarantee? My goodness. Not supposed to use the word always. Not supposed to give guarantees. Well, using the scientific method just means you're going to be using statistics in a smarter way, and that will increase your chances of winning more money in fantasy football. And joining me as he does each and every week, he is the fantasy professor. He's a real professor emeritus. It's John Bush. And John, we are getting closer and closer and closer to the ridiculous take time of the preseason.
So when do the preseason games go? It ought to be pretty soon, huh?
Oh, about another month.
About another month. Okay, so we got another month of rah-rah and speculation. Okay.
Yeah.
And then in the preseason, Dennis, there's going to be some takes. It's going to be amazing. The Hall of Fame, they're going to catch that touchdown and they're going to just run into the Hall of Fame arms of their jacket and they'll just keep running out the stadium. So that's coming. There's going to be somebody that, whatever, people, I told you, here's the man. It's his season. So I know that's going to happen. That's coming. And a few years ago, I did something, looked at it a little bit, and it was a little rare to find any useful information other than injury that I could see. So,
well, this is the time of the year that depth charts first come out before they go to training camp. Okay, they've had their little, OTAs and everything else. They've had all their team meetings, and then you see the depth chart come out, and that hotshot rookie that everybody was talking about is listed third on the depth chart.
That cranks everybody up.
And then people are like, oh my God. Well, what I have always asked is, are you new here? Do you not remember when Jamar Chase couldn't catch a football because it didn't have a stripe on it? When Justin Jefferson was the fourth running or wide receiver on the depth chart his rookie season? Did they work out pretty good as rookies? So let me see. Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. So every year we get coach speak about some guy who was taken in the 6th round or undrafted free agent. This guy is really catching on. He's understanding this offense. Great. Thank you, coach. I'm glad you're sharing that tidbit with us because you are mandated by the league to show up and talk. So you got to say something. And then they don't even make the roster. Coach speak, it just doesn't do anything for me because I have a memory. Like I've been burned on both sides of the coach speak. Oh, this guy, he better get his act together or he's not making this team. And he was the first pick taken in the draft. In week 1, he's already starting. The coaches like to think they're motivating players by keeping them down the depth chart. the player knows how good he is compared to his competition on the team. And, all of these great videos. Oh, this spectacular play that this wide receiver made. And my reaction is, so what you're telling me is Shedeur Sanders is wearing out the defense. Who's the defense again? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's his own team. So maybe he'll really have a great fantasy football week the week he gets to play his own defense. Oh, wait a minute. That's not going to happen unless he gets traded or cut and picked up somewhere else. You're playing against your own guys, and they're not allowed to tackle you. Like, if you're the big stud quarterback, they're not allowed to touch you. If you're the big wide receiver, they're not allowed to tackle you. Like, of course you look good. They're not allowed to do anything that appears to look like football. So, yeah, I ignore everything that I see. What I will pay attention to is I love watching the early games in the preseason.
Yeah.
And see who is being held back. Usually that's the guy that they want to start week one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll see the unheralded rookie that looks really good, and I'll just write his name down. And if he makes the roster, maybe I put a waiver claim in for the guy in deep dynasty. Otherwise, I just adjust my list of players and go on. I'm not living and dying by anything that happens in training camp except for injuries. That's it. And it has to be like really serious, because just because so and so didn't return to practice, okay, like if he gets a paper cut, he's not returning to practice. We have such lofty expectations for this data, and the reality is those who are putting it out, they have to fill a column with something, because they have to write about the NFL every day of the year. You run out of stuff to write about after a while.
And realize there's, with the fantasy folks, not just the team, they've got to get enough clicks going to justify whatever, if they're getting money. I don't know if people pay it or not, who knows. And so there's a click thing's got to happen. And like I said, we were talking pre-show, I think people are afraid, well, I better not really say this because I may lose some clicks, or, it either is or it isn't. And we don't have to worry about that, Dennis, if we, lose a click or two because we, bore people or whatever. That's probably good that we do. And but anyway, so there is some of that. And so when you see something dramatic, that's what, it's sensational, it's on everybody's mind, and that tends to get a lot of people writing because people just saw it. So I guess they want to read on what they just saw, the new mystery rookie and what he did the first preseason. I guess, we all watched it. If it was, a great catch, then
Yeah.
I mean, do I need to read an article? I don't know. That's just, like I said, in the preseason, I'm so much doing research and tracking other things. Dennis, I don't watch a lot of the preseason. If I get a chance, I will, but usually I'm doing other things or doing other research. So you do more of that than I do, and that's good because I'll let you do that and tell me what I'm missing. See, so appreciate that. That's part of the team. And if I think Dennis is much better than me at understanding game calls and things, because he does that for from NASCAR, basketball, and ultimate frisbee. Just, have you tried horse racing
I have
calls? You should
never.
probably turn the volume off and practice, Dennis. You never know. You may need to
No,
step up one night.
yeah, you don't. Stacy will throw something at you for that suggestion because I already do it.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
do enough.
I will catch myself like going into calling plays on baseball games or
Yeah,
horse races.
yeah.
I jokingly do it with our grandkids' baseball games out at the
Oh yeah,
park, and I
that'll
get
get them going.
every once in a while I get a look like, okay, time to shut up.
Yeah.
But no,
What? Dennis needs to shut up, and he's too mouthy and worthy, and talks too.
Shocking,
I can't. I'm just amazed.
shocking, shocking. Totally shocked at that. So anyway, Professor. So don't listen to the coach speak. Just
No, don't.
take it all in, take it all in, but don't overreact to everything. But I'm going to give people. I know this is going to get our editor. I know he listens to the podcast. He's going to get
Yeah.
very upset with me.
Uh-oh. What are you
I'm
gonna do now?
I'm giving away
Uh-oh.
the ultimate secret
Uh-oh.
to how to win in
Uh-oh.
fantasy football.
Yeah.
You ready?
That's the ultimate secret.
You ready?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, set this up by saying we are seeing exactly what we talked about in the off season at the very end of the season last year.
Yeah.
We started talking about how the proliferation
Mm-hmm.
of good scoring running backs,
Mm-hmm.
the Derrick Henrys, the Saquon Barkleys, especially the old guys
Mm-hmm.
doing so well, would change the perception of running backs the following year. I'm seeing more and more articles where they're talking about their strategy as a hero RB strategy. No, they're leaving the zero RB alone right now. It's hero RB that is the hot topic, the hot strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the secret to winning in your fantasy football drafts.
Okay.
Don't listen to whatever the hot strategy is. You need to be adaptive. If I'm picking first, fourth, eighth, 12th, or somewhere in between, that draft pick and what the 11 players, if I'm picking 12th, the 11 players before me, that determines which direction I'm going with my first round draft pick and my second in this case, because I'll get back-to-back picks.
Yeah.
If two great running backs are left, I'm taking two running backs. If two great wide receivers are there, I'm taking two great wide receivers. I might go wide receiver, tight end. But if I'm picking 12th, I have no idea what my best strategy will be for that draft, other than take the best player available early, reduce risk early, go all upside late. Now, notice I didn't specifically say where that happens. Usually by about my 7th or 8th pick, I'm thinking more upside than anything else. By the time I'm about 75 picks into the draft, I'm out of safe players. And I'm gunning for upside. So from 7th on, 7th, like in our FPPC drafts, they're 20 round drafts.
Yep.
From pick 7 to pick 20, I'm going for anybody who has a chance to get on the scoreboard 4 to 6 weeks solid for his team, to lead his team Is there a path for this player to lead his team in touches or targets for a 4 to 6 game segment during the year? That's the question I ask. And the reason I ask that is the best strategy that I can build in fantasy football is two things. It's adaptive. So I'm not going to take the 12th best running back just because it said hero RB is the way to go. Because if 11 guys take running backs and I'm picked number 12, I'm taking the top 2 wide receivers and I'm saying thank you very much, because I'm going to pummel you in this league because you have now given me extra than I should have gotten at that pick. So if you blindly follow either zero RB or hero RB or, mega RB or any other crazy terminology that they want to throw out there, you're throwing your money away, because the best draft is adaptive and it has one other feature to it. It has a strategy that is so good that if I'm wrong about a player or that player gets hurt, I already have my backup plan in place. And that goes for every position, because I'm taking 2 quarterbacks in every draft this year. I may only take 1 tight end. Usually I'm taking 2. I may only, in 20-player drafts, I might only take 1 tight end if I get a great one. I'm always taking 2 quarterbacks. I was thinking about how that strategy began with me, and you were here for it. It was COVID. It was the COVID season, because we're losing quarterbacks
Yes,
to
we
COVID.
were.
We're losing players to COVID. We're losing. And it dawned on me, we could lose a player to a concussion protocol decision, to a knee injury, to a minor injury, to just having the flu. Like, why subject yourself to not having a great quarterback to play? In enough leagues that I've been in, with the exception of my home league where they're quarterback happy, most people won't take their backup quarterback until really, really late. So what has that done for you and I? It's allowed us to have 2 very good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We either have an elite and a very good, or we have 2 very good quarterbacks.
Yeah. We've done a 8th, 9th round, 10th, 11th. Yeah, I've done that. You've done
Back to
that.
back.
Yeah,
Back to
back.
Yeah.
Or back and
Back
then
to back.
within another round, back again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that allows you.
Sometimes, Dennis, not all the time.
Yeah.
It just
Not
depends
all the
on,
time.
yeah.
It usually allows you
Well,
to have
if
2
you've
very
got
good.
one of the elite quarterbacks, you're probably waiting longer than
Yeah,
if you've
I
got a
agree.
good quarterback, right? After about Burrow, after about the 6th round, for whatever reason, if you've missed, it's kind of forcing my hand to try to have 2 quarterbacks within a block of time. I'm
Yeah.
not defining that. I'm not stuck on that, because I hate to miss an upside play when my other guy could be
Yeah.
available. There's just a sense like, yeah, they're off quarterbacks these rounds, so I'm gonna gamble my second good quarterback is gonna go. The only thing I like is it's nice to have a passer versus a rusher,
Yeah.
kind of a duo, or the schedule. Something is attractive in those tandem. There's something about the tandem. I'm not going to define it because I don't like hard and fast rules for that situation.
No.
Being
No.
adaptive, you just kind of flow a little bit, and
Being
but
being
those are
being
things to think about.
being adaptive doesn't mean you don't have a starting game plan.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know, last year, for instance, and this will be this year as well.
yeah,
I will pick out quarterbacks at various points of the draft.
yeah.
And those are the guys that when it comes time to pick, like for instance, in the redraft I'm in right now, I have picked number 12. Okay. So I had the first pick or the 12th pick in the draft. I opened with Malik Neighbors. Very pleased with that. Came back with Derrick Henry to start the second. I got to the end of the third round for my next pick. Jaden Daniels was there. I'm not a believer in the sophomore slump because we've done the data. We know that for every quarterback that has a sophomore slump, there's two more that improve. They learn this game of football as they go. So I saw Jaden Daniels there and I took him. So fast forward, we're heading to round 13. I'm 2 picks away or 3 picks away. I don't have my second quarterback yet. I'm okay with that because I've got a stud at quarterback. Some of the guys that are left, Jared Goff. You know how I feel about Jared Goff. I got JJ McCarthy still sitting out there. I got Stafford, I got Tua, I got Cam Ward. All guys that I'll consider at some point in the draft. If Goff is there in 3 more picks, he's probably going home with me because I like that idea of having a guy who I know he's got 8 home games. He's going to have 7 of 8 really good home games. That's what Jared Goff has shown us over the years. I'll take that as a backup quarterback and let it beat me. But you're right. There's no hard and fast rules, but there's these ideas. Quarterback early, then I could take a quarterback a little later. If I wait at quarterback, I'm probably going back to quarterback pretty fast. It also depends on what's on the board. If I don't like anything else on the board over the next 15, 16 picks, it's a quarterback or it's a tight end. I will, if I don't like the running backs and wide receivers, and I think the ones I do like are going to come back to me, that's the time I usually will take my quarterback.
We, I'm sorry, Dennis. Had a frog in my throat. You know how it is. Oh, the adaptive is, you've emphasized that. I, I like to find patterns in the ADPs. I
Yes.
like to kind
Yes.
of have expectations. Not that I follow those, but what I don't like is to wake up and realize, uh-oh, we got to run here. And
Yeah.
I just don't want to be surprised. I can deal with it or not, but I don't like to be surprised. I
No.
like to have that decision on what's going on. And so later on, probably after the expo, I'll try to make time to you and I to go start getting serious about ADP patterns and a few other
Yes.
things. A little behind this year trying to get this data and our metrics, trying to figure out what our metrics, their relationships to each other. This is the year. Last year, we kind of put it together at the last minute and kind of went with it. We had some good teams. I'm greedy. I
Oh,
want
yeah.
more.
Yeah.
This year, my goal has to been to understand the relationship of these metrics with other metrics. And that should be a lot of, I don't see a lot of, there's some good data folk out there that are trying to do these kind of things. But for the most part, it's pretty lean out there, Dennis. I don't see a lot of it. A little lean. And, that's what we want to do. And I'm not going to have all the secret sauce for everybody, but we will talk about who we draft and whatnot. And I thought we ought to, at some point, maybe now's time. You've gotten 4 player versus player out for people to think about a little bit in the next couple weeks while I'm on vacation. I don't know what Dennis is doing. I think he's bailing out. Did you raise bail, my brother?
Uh,
Dennis
my
gets a little cranky and starts mouthy, and some of these law enforcement folks don't like that. So they
well, here,
remember when Dennis you know, called it wrong on the TV or something, and they heard about it. So
so
Chiefs fans probably are not recognized up where you're at.
no, but I did have a funny interaction with the local police.
Uh-oh.
So this is a couple years ago, and again, this was coming out of COVID, and with all the stuff that was going on with the Floyd thing and
Uh-huh.
whatnot up in Minneapolis and all the protests,
Right.
people were really being mean to even the good police officers. So
Right.
I decided that I wanted to do something to offset all of that hate that they were seeing. So I got the wise idea of starting to take up a few dollars in collections and then from area restaurants getting gift cards. And I bought, you know, through the radio station. They were nice enough to comp, some advertising time for the restaurants that um, were obviously going through hard times during COVID,
Yeah.
and if they gave us gift certificates, they got some advertising in exchange, and of course they got the money from people coming to eat and getting to discover their restaurants. So I got the opportunity to go to our local police officers in Danville and at shift change, hand out to their commander 120 gift cards. So every officer in the Danville police officer, all of the Danville, all of the Vermilion County, they could all go out to lunch on us. About 2 months later, I got pulled over because I was speeding on the way to work. And the minute the guy came up and he says, "You just bought us lunch. I'm giving you a warning today." So it got me out of a ticket. And I'm usually not one to speed, but I was kind of listening to music, didn't notice when it dropped down from 35. And I was like, got me. But anyway, yeah, before we get into the player by player, I want to just
Okay.
again, the best strategy if
Adaptive.
I'm wrong about a player, okay, so it's adaptive, but then if I'm wrong about a player, I'm still covered. That means I have enough depth at wide receiver to withstand an injury. Last year I had a team that won the championship in FPPC. I lost Rashee Rice and Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
But I had backups. And I had guys that I had grabbed Rashee Rice and then I grabbed Xavier Worthy. So now I'm set. I don't mind having 2 wide receivers from the same team. I love having my own backups to my running backs.
Right.
But here's the thing. You don't force it to happen. It has to be a value. Like if I draft Ken Walker, I can get Zach Charbonnet on my team if I draft him 3 rounds early than his ADP. But then I'm defeating the purpose of drafting him. And there's probably a better player that I passed on. So if I end up with my handcuffs, great. If I don't end up with my handcuffs, fine. You can't force the issue. Love having 2 wide receivers on the same team if it fits and if the pricing made sense. Because even if it's Jamar Chase and Higgins, who I had to pay up to get, they're still both going to be viable starters. And if one of them gets hurt, the other one's going to have some spike weeks that are going to really pay off. That's what I mean by having a strategy where if you're wrong or there's an injury, it still pays off.
It occurs to me, Dennis, the reason we do adaptive and are probably good with it is because we play a lot of leagues. There's a
Yes.
scared factor, and so people that play one or two,
Yes.
I, folks, I, 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 if you're having an issue and finding yourself taking too many safe choices and you never win, maybe, I know it sounds funny, maybe you should draft a few more leagues, give yourself some chance. It's kind of like in blackjack. People, the dealer's got they've got a six, and the dealer's got a face card, and the basic strategy says you need to take a hit, but you know you're going to bust, and you get scared and you stay on 16 instead of hit. You know, there's something to be said. If you're too scared of your bankroll, you end up playing favorites all day at the track, and
Yes.
there's time to play favorites, and there's time to get off favorites or find long shots to go with them or make it pay, reach a little bit. And Dennis and I don't have that trouble, but I can see, Dennis, think about it. If they have one or two home leagues and that's it,
Yes. Yes.
and they're hearing you say, oh, well, do this or do that. And it's like, I'm scared. I got to have X, Y, or Z because I got to go hero because that's what, I want to win. So realize I don't think we think about that, Dennis. And I would just urge people to try to actually play cheaper leagues instead of
Yes.
$200. Try four or five or six $35 leagues, right? Just see. I mean, if you can hit a win, that probably will get you at least close to breaking even. And you can be a little more aggressive because you don't want to play scared. You don't gamble playing scared because you
Oh,
end up,
no.
you're going to, and then then Dennis, in the draft, they're scared, they pick an obvious, and then they've got another pick, and that goes, and they start getting mad, and oh, I didn't, and they just, by the time the draft's over, they hate their team, and it's just a regretful. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to stop in for one beer, and 20 beers later, they're in the drunk tank. You just don't want to be that way. You need to anticipate. If I'm going out and having 10 beers, I need sober drivers or have Uber or some mechanism. You just don't want to float around and hope don't wake up dead, Dennis, as the song says. I don't know if you
Yeah.
know that song, but anybody going to San Antonio? Charlie Pride did that, and he says a man could wake up dead. He's talking about sleeping out, leaving his
Oh, yeah.
woman, and he's talking about going to San Antonio. Said a man could wake up dead, and that was one of the best lines. So you do not in a draft want to wake up dead, Dennis, halfway through it or looking around. What just happened? Here's a run, and I've got the 26th and 27th best quarterbacks, rut row, and
Oh,
then you're
yeah.
mad at yourself, and then you got another home draft, tomorrow, and you're mad about this one, angry at this, and it's their damn fault, and I knew I shouldn't have drank that fifth of whiskey, and I'm mad at everybody. Dennis, it's just it goes undone. You cannot go tilt, folks. If you played poker, you just can't go tilt. So
No.
I would recommend playing enough leagues that you got a chance and you can play aggressively by being adaptive. It's common sense, but it's scared, Dennis. You want to stay on 16, and that is a scary thing. People get scared, or they want to draw, right? They want to hit 17. It's like, man, that dealer, I know he's got another face card, and 17's not going. Well, I better draw, and they draw on 17, and the basic strategy says you stick on 17. And people, they'll stay on 16, but they'll draw on 17. That's just exactly opposite. So, folks, and you're saying, well, if you only bet 100 a hand, you got $200 bankroll. Folks, you go to the dollar table or save up money to where you can have enough bankroll to survive, because the odds are going to play against you for a while. Okay, so you just can't go crazy like that. So think of game theory, go to the racetrack and take you some money and bet a show bet. I know you're not going to win, but just get in the, just practice. Just practice making a decision and not being scared. That's part of it. And just think about that a little bit. That's
Yeah,
just my
in
editorial, Dennis.
in fantasy football, I'm thinking 4 quarters. Okay, the season is like 4 quarters. So you got 4 or 5 game segments that are really the fantasy football season. So I want a couple of running backs. If I can get 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers, they're going to start their season by leading their team in touches or targets. Now I'm set. I'm set for the early part of the season. Now I get later in the draft. I don't want to take ordinary. To me, Darnell Mooney is ordinary. Rashad Bateman is ordinary. Are they going to score fantasy football points all season? Yeah, they are. But they're going to have a lot more 4 to 8 point games. And there's not going to be, barring injury, and I will say, even if there is an injury, I'm not sure either one of those players has that alpha wide receiver in them where they would be dominant. And in Baltimore's case, it's because they just don't throw enough. I'm not even crazy about Zay Flowers because they don't throw enough. It doesn't mean that they're lousy fantasy football players, but in redraft, I want exceptional fantasy football players for 4 to 6 weeks at a time. So my latest redraft team, I opened at running back with Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker, Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco. That's 4 guys. They're going to lead their team in carries on week 1, barring injury. This isn't magic. They are going to lead their team in carries. On the wide receiver side, I got Malik Neighbors, and then I missed. I only got Waddle, Matthew Golden, and Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman could be good early, and he was a heck of a bargain in the 10th round. He played all last season with an injured back. So somewhere during the season, I think he will lead his team in targets for 4 to 6 weeks at a stretch. Matthew Golden probably late in the season. So now I've got guys that I can count on. I got Mark Andrews at tight end. Feel good about him. And I got Jaden Daniels at quarterback. Feel good about him. Because Andrews could have a streak where he leads his team in targets. And I'm not talking tight ends. I'm talking his entire team. So that's the mentality that I go into a draft, and we start 2 flex positions. So I've got 4 starting running backs. I've got 4 really good running backs, assuming they're healthy. I will probably be starting all 4 on week 1 because I'm stronger at running back than I am wide receiver. It just happened that way. I think Waddle's got some upside, though. And I think Pittman's got some upside. Plus, he was cheap. And Golden is kind of that rookie that I expect to be good. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I've got 3 other choices to start. And I know Malik Neighbors isn't going to be bad. So I'm set. And I might pick up a Wan'Dale Robinson who really had a lot of targets last year. Those are the kinds of guys I'll go for late in a draft. Guys that could be good versus a guy that's going to score 3 to 6 points a week. But he's going to play 17 weeks, so he's going to end up 35th in points. I don't want that. I want a guy, if something happens to Neighbors, then Wan'Dale Robinson probably eats a lot of targets. But that's the mentality of attacking a draft. Think of it in 4 quarters. Make sure you start the draft with guys that are going to be really strong early. And then late in the draft, you're picking the what ifs. So the what ifs I added, Rachaad White, Ray Davis. I got a shot. Rachaad White will probably be splitting the backfield with Bucky Irving right from the start. What if something happens to Bucky Irving? So that's the way you got to think. It's not a defensive strategy. It's actually an offensive strategy. Can I get a guy, if everybody I pick, he's got a logical reason of why he can lead his team for 4 to 6 weeks in touches or targets. And if he can't, he's not on the team. Or it's a backup to somebody I already have. Then you got layers. You're protected against injury. You're protected against being wrong. Well, I don't think I'll be wrong about Malik Neighbors being really, really good.
Well, I just wanted to talk about don't be scared. So
I
that's
like it.
easy to say, Dennis, but I've been at the track and sometimes, you're losing. It gets, you start getting on tilt and it's tough. If anybody's curious, go to the track. And if you've got any flaws in your personality, they will unravel and show themselves to you. Okay. The track has a humbling way, right? And you can see somebody hitting 2 or 3 bets in a row and they're acting like, man, this game's easy. Where's my bankroll? And all of a sudden, they're hitching a ride home. That, Dennis, you've seen it, I've seen it.
Yep.
Things will lay you low and you don't, it's like, I don't even know where this came from. And that's what I'm saying. Horse racing trains you to put things into perspective, be adaptive in your bankroll strategy.
So
Anyway, Dennis,
learn
yeah.
that strategy from my dad, because
Oh yeah.
I remember I must have been like 16, went out to Arlington Park with him for the day, just having a good time. I can't bet, but I'm handicapping the races and he's playing a $2 bet for me in every race. Well, second race, he not only caught a really nice daily double, but he caught the trifecta.
Nice.
He cashed over $800.
There you go.
He took the money, took 600, handed it to me, says, "Don't give it back to me until we get home."
Yeah, you hold my money.
Don't give it back to me until we get home.
Yeah, been
and
there,
that
done
was
that.
that was the strategy, because he knew that he didn't want to go. If he got on a losing streak, he didn't want to have problems. But when I play poker, if I have a bad beat, the next hand I'm playing very conservative, because I know you can have a couple bad beats. You just go on tilt, and you've got to know that. In fantasy football, if I make a bad pick and I go, "Oh God, what did I do?" I don't even worry about it.
But that diary helps you catch that, to at least think about things. Save your draft board, think about things.
Yes.
You can always go back and say, what the hell was I thinking? What was I
good,
smoking during this draft?
good strategy indeed.
Anyway, Dennis, we have four player versus player. Love these, not necessarily just the players, but just I like to watch you lay out your case a little bit, like you're kind of in courtroom and you're trying to present the things. And you picked some interesting picks, and they're not like, Tweedledee, Tweedledum. I mean, these things are close, and it's going to confuse. There's going to be a lot of people on either side of the coin, Dennis. So you do well finding those really important decisions there. So is there anyone? And folks, these are all up on Science of Fantasy. Go to at DMike Media on Twitter. He's, and me, find my Twitter, and I've posted them. And you need to, Dennis, you need to like them and repost them every once in a while this week. I got you
Yeah.
three more, so just save
Yeah.
it there. But anyway, is there one you want to talk about first
Yeah.
on the show?
Let's talk about the one you got up on the
Okay,
screen,
okay,
because I think what it does is I can explain the rationale
yeah,
of the way you have to analyze players.
okay.
And
Take us through this then.
yeah, it really should be, it has to be the same for every matchup. And these matchups were ones that other fantasy football people on Twitter
Yeah.
asked, who'd you rather have, CeeDee Lamb or Malik Neighbors? And my answer was, I'm not really sure. You know, I knew who rated higher in my ratings than the other guy, but I wasn't 100% sure. So I always look at things from a team level and a player level. What happened in the past? Why did this player post this number? For CeeDee Lamb, for instance, 106.7 is not bad, but it's not where you expected CeeDee Lamb to be if you drafted him in the first round last year. 106.7 is about tight end, or about wide receiver 10, 11. Okay. You had to draft him a lot earlier than that. So that was a disappointment. Why did he disappoint, though? He disappointed because Dak got hurt. How can I say that with so much confidence? Because Dak got hurt in 22 and CeeDee Lamb was a 111.8. In between, when Dak was healthy most of the year, 141.2. This is an offense with the Cowboys that really clicks when Dak is healthy and doing okay. And I say doing okay because if you look at Dak's numbers for the year when we saw such a big number from, I mean, that's a big 141. Doesn't get any better than that, folks. That's the elite of the elite. Prescott was a 94 that year. That speaks to about QB 7-8. So he wasn't elite. He was very good, but he wasn't elite. And the year before, he was a 75 when CeeDee Lamb struggled. Now, he had 10 games. Dak Prescott had 10 games, and CeeDee Lamb still didn't crack 120. If I'm drafting a wide receiver first round, I want 120 or better on the MVP. That's top 6 guaranteed. I'll take that. And CeeDee Lamb has 2 of his years of
And
the
I'm
last
looking
3.
at your MVP paragraph here.
Yeah.
Top 9 is 120.
Yeah. Yep. Top 6 is
Top 6
is
yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, 120.
Yeah. So what that tells you is if I draft a guy, and if I get CeeDee Lamb, for instance, I got to take him probably about WR 325.
Right now in FFPC,
He's number
wide
3.
receiver 3.
And so I know I'm not going to get him any later than 5.
He's
Okay.
going at 7 because people are
Yeah.
all in with right now it's Chase, Bijan, Barkley, Gibbs,
Yeah.
Bowers, Jefferson, and Lamb. So the
Yeah.
hard one would be Lamb versus Jefferson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Dennis, I'm looking and they're almost sitting on top. In other words, there's a gap. If you look at the average, uh,
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson's 5.8, Lamb is 6.4. The
Wow.
range of outcomes 2 to 10, 2 to 11. So the public sees them the same with a little edge to Jefferson.
And
So
I see him. Yeah.
that would have, because Monique Neighbors is 10, he's wide receiver. He's under Lamb, but he's 10th. And
Yes.
his average is 10.5,
Yeah.
6 to 17. So nobody, the best they're thinking is 6. CeeDee Lamb, the best is 2.
Yeah. And if it was Jefferson versus Lamb,
Mm-hmm.
I would approach it the exact same way.
Okay.
Jefferson 123.5, 155.6, 123.5. That's with 3 different quarterbacks.
That's pretty good.
That's incredible to be over 120 with 3 different quarterbacks. So JJ McCarthy doesn't scare me
Gotcha.
because that offense is strong enough. And Jefferson's just that special that even if JJ McCarthy throws 20 interceptions, he's still going to throw a lot of good passes.
So, Dennis,
to
a lot
Jefferson.
of the FFPC people are going to their choice if their 5th pick, Bowers, Jefferson, Lamb. It's almost a 3-way. Do you want to go and pick a tight end, folks, that I've never seen above like 10 or 11? Kelsey back in the day. Now
Yeah.
Bowers is 5th. That's crazy.
So Bowers had an amazing season last year as
Yeah.
a rookie. Okay, set all kinds of records.
Yeah.
But this isn't the same roster as last season.
Yeah.
Last season, the defense even struggled at times because of injuries.
Yeah.
The defense will be better, so they won't be in these shootouts every game. They added a guy, you might have heard about him around draft time, Ashton Giante.
Yep.
Running back versus Zamir White.
Yeah. Not worried about that.
Amir Abdullah.
I know.
You know, you didn't have a running back last year. You got one this year. What do you think they're going to do? I think they're going to run a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they also have Jacoby Myers and a better quarterback on the team. They also picked up a guy by the name of Jack Besh and Dante Thornton as rookie wide receivers. So that's a lot of change to the team. Notice I didn't say Brock Bowers is going to be awful. He's going to be 1 or 2 at tight end this year, most likely. But I can't draft him that early because I would rather have an elite wide receiver than a very good tight end, like a great tight end. But I can get closer to that. I'm not so sure I can get Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb or even Malik Neighbors later in the draft. Those guys are the elite. Amon-Ra St. Brown might be the only guy I'll get in the 2nd round that rates like that. And then maybe, a Shane or Jacobs as running backs. But we're talking, I want elite guys. I want that over 120. Bowers was a 94 in MVP last year. That's really good for a tight end. McBride was a 106. So that's the way I look at it. I think Bowers is getting drafted because everybody's going, whoa, that was the guy last year. And people,
Theoretically, you would have a shot at picking Jefferson Lamb neighbors with
McBride,
McBride. You'd have a
yes.
shot.
Yeah.
You'd have a shot.
Yeah. And if I don't get that, then I've got somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm stronger at wide receiver or running back.
Yes, you are.
But if I take Bowers,
Mhm.
then I won't be strong. I won't have an elite guy at wide receiver or running back. I I won't have both anyway. I can start a draft with two elite wide receivers, two or an elite wide receiver, elite running back, or whatever, with those first two picks, or with first and third picks. But if I do get an opportunity at McBride, but I'm not so sure. I think the third through fifth tight ends might catch up a little bit on the top two. But again, getting back
Yeah,
to the
get back to Lamb
analysis.
versus Neighbors.
So Lamb, I just looked at what did he do and who did he do it with? And Dak Prescott's health is really, really important when it comes to where it is. Now, I will say this. This year, they also picked up George Pickens
Yes,
to their wide
you
receiver
say
room.
that.
So why is Pickens important? Because now let's say Dak Prescott gets hurt. Last year,
They just loaded up on Lamb.
all they had was Lamb. So if I'm a defense, I now say I'm taking Lamb out of the game. And the quarterback, if he throws it in to try to slide it in between double coverage, he's probably going to get picked off or it's going to be incomplete. Yep. And CeeDee Lamb's numbers failed. Now, if they come in with the backup quarterback this year, because Dak gets hurt, now you got Pickens that is there that can hurt you as well. Pickens is not a great wide receiver, but he's a really good second wide receiver to have on a team. They're not going to be able to double team CeeDee Lamb. And they have different route trees, different ways that they hurt a defense. When you have two different wide receivers that don't overlap on their route tree that much, they're not going to hurt each other. They're going to help each other. And then when I look at Malik Neighbors, I think he had 4 different quarterbacks last year.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
And he barely had a bad game. 126.7.
That's nice.
For an MVP. That's dare I say it, Justin Jefferson territory.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, and I'm on Ross St. Brown territory. That is the elite of the elite. And quarterback play ain't going to get any worse this year. He's got Russell Wilson, who we know Russell Wilson has been kind to fantasy football wide receivers in the past. Mm-hmm. Or they go with the rookie. The rookie's only going to play if he's better than Russell Wilson. Both guys, and even their third string, Jameis Winston, is better than anything they had throwing the ball last year. So I'm hard-pressed to see how Malik Neighbors, without an injury, comes in that much lower than the 125 to 130 range this year. So that's where I've got him forecast. But that's how you have to analyze. And, I'm doing this player by player. Okay. So I'm comparing two. But let's say if at my point in the draft, I've got Jefferson, Lamb, Neighbors, I'm on Ross St. Brown to choose from. I'm going to do a similar analysis. And then the next step is, okay, let's look at the ADP and see where they're going. If they're going with enough variance, the best news is what if I'm picking 7th or 8th in the draft, and CeeDee Lamb falls to me. And I know from the variants that maybe Neighbors or St. Brown could fall to my second pick. I might take Lamb over Neighbors if I think that the Neighbors is going to fall, or I might stick with Neighbors. I mean, but at that point in the draft, you decide based on what's available. But I like to do these head-to-head comparisons because they also show the methodology that you should use at every point in the draft. Why should this guy be better? Why should he be less? And that's how I come up with my ranges of logical outcomes. I give a high-low forecast on every player. And the idea is, okay, if my primary forecast doesn't work, which way is he likely to go, lower or higher? And that range lets me kind of understand that.
I am just updating since I'm here. I thought I'd update. Neighbors is 10th.
Perfect.
Lamb is 7th. So here's your MVP. Here's your forecast. Why don't you take us through that?
Yeah. So looking ahead,
especially at the forecast, that intrigues me. There's some of the art that Dennis spins in here.
Yeah. And so the high and low for Lamb, and again, I round down. Okay.
Yeah.
It's been 105 to 140. Okay. So that's where he has been, is 105 to 140. And I'm looking at this going, could he be a little better? Sure. I'm going to give him credit for 5 more points to the high side. Because last year, his best 10 games, even though he had a down season with Dak out, his best 10 games, he was still at 140.
Yeah.
So that tells me 140, 145 is a realistic high point for CeeDee Lamb. So that's how I came up with that forecast. I think 120 is the more logical number. It's about halfway in between where he's been the last 2 years. That accounts for Dak not being really, really great. Also accounts for the Cowboys' defense getting better, which could make shootouts less important. So that's how I came up with the 120. Am I right? Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure that his MVP is going to end up in that 100 to 145 range. I would say I'm 80 to 90% positive that that's where he'll end up. And I give him 5 more points to the upside. So I say, if I miss, he's probably going to miss high. Maybe a 125, 130 season is coming up if Dak stays healthy and Dak is productive. On the flip side, I got Malik Neighbors, who I've got less data on. So I'm looking at going, what if I'm wrong? And the quarterback situation is worse, not because the quarterbacks are worse, but because they don't have to throw as often. Yeah. Because they have a better running game, maybe, or they have the defense working better and keeping them in games, and they're doing enough, but they're not needing junkyard times. So I'm like, okay, what's the lowest I could see? Well, in other rookies who have been around 125, I've seen them be as bad as 80 to 100. Doesn't happen very often. But that second year, they now have tape on Malik Neighbors. They know how to defense this guy. He happens to be a really good player, so I don't think they're going to be able to get him. But I've got to account for that because there's less data, so there's more uncertainty. And that's why I gave him a lower floor than CeeDee Lamb, who his worst year, he's been a 106.7. That's a bad year for him, and he's been there. So I gave him just a few points less than that. With Malik Neighbors, I just don't know because I have to account for the fact that I don't know what I don't know with Malik Neighbors. But I think the odds are good that he'll be pretty close to last year and maybe a little higher. Could I have given him a 145 or even a 150 on the high side? Yeah, I could have. His best 10 games last year were 150. And I said, okay, that's only 10 games. I'm not going to give him the full credit for that, but I shaded it. So I could have shaded him 5 points, just like I gave CeeDee Lamb a 5-point boost over his. But of course, CeeDee Lamb's got a 141 in his resume. So forecasting 145 ceiling for CeeDee Lamb wasn't totally outrageous. I try to make these forecasts make sense because I want between 80 to 90% of the players that I forecast to hit their range if they play 10 games.
Gotcha. Well, you picked Neighbors.
Yes.
Uh,
and I would be happy with either guy.
Yeah. If you're pick 7, you're not going to get both.
No.
So in other words, if you're pick 7 and if you skip Lamb, you're almost saying, well, I guess I'm going to the sun god and I'm grabbing a running back. I'm trying to figure out, what are you thinking there?
So,
in other words,
yeah.
If you're pick 7, would you skip Lamb and take Neighbors? If you're pick 10, Lamb's probably gone. So correct. Neighbors you're happy with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So to me, this is a little variable on what your draft pick is and what you're thinking more than anything. That's going to influence it. If you pick 3, Dennis, I'm not picking either one. I'm probably looking at a running back or maybe Justin Jefferson if Chase is gone.
Yeah, and let's say I'm pick 6 in this scenario.
Then both should be available. Both
should be available on average. I might take neither if Bijan Robinson or Jamar Gibbs falls to me at 6 or 7.
Right.
I'm probably going with either of those guys. But let's say both of those premier running backs are gone. Let's say Jamar Chase is gone. Let's not put an unbelievable thing because I don't think he'll drop past 3 or 4 in any draft this year. If I am at pick 6 or 7 and I got to make the decision between Lamb and Neighbors, I'm leaning Neighbors just slightly. And I could be happy with either one. Here's the thing. If my MVP forecast is not greater than 10 points, they're identical. Like, these players are as identical as possible. I'm betting on the upside of Neighbors because I've already seen what happens if Dak gets hurt. And Dak hasn't been able to stay healthy for 2 of the last 3 years. We've seen Dak missing some segments of games, and it's hurt CeeDee Lamb's output.
Yeah.
So that's why I look at this and I say, you know what? I'll bet on the come line. I'll bet on the guy that's up and coming who hasn't, I like when I'm close on 2 guys, I like looking at that best 10. And that best 10 said, you want Neighbors. He was 10 points better. Now, Amon St. Brown was 170.
Just want to let you know, in the main event at FFPC, Ra is above Neighbors. How about that?
Yeah,
but in best ball, it's not.
No.
Isn't that interest?
And in classic no badges, one quarterback, he's going right now. He was going 13th the last time I got into a
He's
draft.
9 in
Yeah,
the main
he's
event.
going up. He's going up.
There's some fluidity about all these
Oh yeah.
ADPs. Yeah.
Yeah, and there will be all off season. There will be, as we get closer,
Yeah.
I think the
Interesting.
the ADPs seem to adjust less as
Yeah.
you get closer to the
Yeah.
season. We've
Yeah.
seen that.
Yeah.
This ADP right now is very fluid
Yeah.
because I for a couple of reasons, more so maybe this year than last,
Yeah.
because we got we got fed our running back salad last year.
Yeah.
People were so down.
We did well.
They were so down on running backs, and we were saying,
And it looks like there's a little tilt back to running backs a little bit.
It is. This year, the old running backs are like, oh yeah, we like Barkley. We like, they're even Henry, who's entering his age 31 season,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
going early in the second. So
Yeah.
people have seen the light. They understand that some of these guys are freaks of nature.
Yeah.
They're going to defy father time maybe one more year. Maybe they don't.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the strategy says, in this, for instance, in my redraft team, because I made the move to grab Derrick Henry
Yeah.
and took him in the second round,
Right.
I said to myself, concentrate on having maybe one more really good backup just in case Father Time wins, because it always does. If Father Time wins on Derrick Henry, he's also got to knock me out of Mixon.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've still got Pacheco and Walker to go.
Yeah.
So I've got layers of possibilities
Right.
if Derrick Henry beats me. But, I kind of like Derrick Henry again this year. It's hard not to like a guy who just posted a 141 in MVP.
So I just thought with all this, imagine the preseason Bowers gets one catch, something crazy or drops
Yeah.
2 or 3. How
Yes.
I could see people being a little shaky in traditional FFPC.
Yeah.
People like,
or he just
whatever. He doesn't look like you
Yeah.
think he should look.
Minor hamstring pull, and all of a sudden he
how
drops.
strong are they going to be?
Yeah.
It's that am I brave enough to do something that's never been done before, drafting a tight end in pick 5? I haven't seen it. So
I haven't seen it pay off. Yeah.
It's pretty lean. Anyway, so that was interesting. And I just wanted to add my 2 cents. Folks, I think what I would do, read the article and just get a flow, and then come back and write down the metrics, and then look at those, and then go away for a while, then come back to those metrics and do you see what Dennis is thinking, or at least start that process. And then if you need, read the article again. I know somebody, I'm only going to scan it one time and I got to go drink a beer. I understand. But part of what Dennis is doing he's giving you the process, and that's what is more important than the picks in your next 10 years, folks. We want to enhance your processing and move you up, not worry about the picks. Okay, necessarily. Why did Dennis do this? What is he telling you? Listen to this show again. Read that article. I see. The editor whispers in my ears he's doing this, so I get to see that. I get to hear what Dennis is saying. I see him on other things, and sometimes he didn't know, but I'll refer back. Oh, okay, yeah, the neighbor's CD Lamb. I'm okay. So sometimes Dennis is a little too close to the forest to see all the
Oh
trees,
yeah.
and that's my
Yeah.
job is to kind of ease him back a little bit, and that's why you need some a group of people to be partners and help you in your draft, and not clowns. You don't need to be hanging with clowns because you're going to lose in this circus. Let me tell you. So anyway, that's how I would approach and look at his other three articles and just kind of get a feel for process more than anything else. And then go read his MVP again and, just let it all soak in. You know, have maybe this show running in your headphones and fall asleep and then wake up and Dennis is still talking.
Yeah, and here's the thing, Professor, is, I could, and this is going to come off sounding really cocky, but you and I could both do this. We could give our data,
We could.
our raw list of data to everybody we draft against at draft night out.
Yep.
Can hand it to them.
Yep.
We'll use that data better than the average player.
Yep.
The very smart players will probably figure out how to use it and would give us a run for their money. But I could draft against my own data with somebody and still probably beat them 7 out of 10 times.
I agree. I like
because my draft strategy allows me to be wrong. Because when I'm taking a player that early in the draft as my first pick in the draft, I'm just thinking, what could go wrong? How bad could it be? And when you look at my MVP forecasts for players, you will notice I usually shade them to the light side. Like, for instance, Jamar Chase, 147 last year, 141 back in 2022. I'll give him a 135 forecast this year. Now, that doesn't
most
mean
people would give you the average of the two.
Correct. What I'm saying is that I think I'm going to be conservative. Now, I gave him a 150 on the high side. Yeah. Okay. Now, I gave him an 85 on the low side because that's what he was without Burrow.
Okay.
And while I don't try to forecast injuries for individual players, I look at situations and I say, what would this guy do without his quarterback?
Is he the first pick then? Versus Justin Jefferson?
Best 10 games, he was a 190 last year. That's hard.
Crazy.
200 is perfect.
Yeah, it's hard to walk away from that.
You know who had the only perfect score in best 10?
Who's that?
Bijan Robinson was a 200. He had a 158.8. He would be my first player.
He's the show down there.
He'd be my player because he's going to catch a lot of balls. He's going to run a lot of balls, and he's going to score a lot of touchdowns.
And he's young.
His rookie year when he was splitting the backfield, he had a 106.3.
Yeah.
Last year, 158.8. Insane. That's insane. Now, I forecasted 140 for him. Why did I have him dropping almost 20 points? 18.8 points to be exact. It's because every running back that I've studied in the last 4 years who had more than 310 touches saw some decrease in his MVP. So I forecasted a slight decrease. 140 is still top of the heap.
Yes, it is.
So I'm forecasting a decline, and he's still tied with Gibbs at 140. Gibbs had a 141 last year. I think he plays right back to that. because he didn't have 310 touches. So, it's just some of these things are all based on the data.
Yep.
Some come down to a feel though. And because forecasting is not an exact science in anything.
Nope.
You got the data to lead to that forecast, but the actual forecast is never carved in stone. Like these forecasts are being updated now in July. It'll be a slow process and I will tweak them, but I will come to a conclusion on the 20th of July. By the 20th of July is my goal, to be done with the data review. So I got a little less than a month. Then other than injuries, I'm not changing again. That's my August forecast.
Nice.
I'm making 2 forecasts a year. My diary has told me that if you tweak too often, you out tweak yourself.
Yeah.
And I will just, if there's a major thing, then it'll be another adjustment, but it'll take an injury. It'll take serious movement on a team before I do another adjustment after this next one. That's just, again, my strategy. Doesn't say it's the best strategy out there, but the diary tells me that this is the best I think I can do.
Nice. I like that. Use that diary.
And that is so important, folks. You don't learn in science. If you do an experiment and you don't take any notes,
you gotta take notes.
You don't learn anything from that experiment. So that's why this fantasy football diary concept is so important, because unless you know where you made a mistake in previous years, you don't know where to go.
Now, I will jump in and say, you can do a good process, but have a bad outcome. Make sure you understand the difference between a bad process and a bad outcome. Or worse yet, bad process, lucky, good outcome. You got lucky and you don't even know you got lucky. You walked into that hand and didn't even realize it. So we want to emphasize process. Bad outcomes will happen, Dennis. Injuries will happen.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
In the fantasy championship, a player could go apeshit crazy, get 5 touchdowns, and we all lose.
You could get
Kamara or Gurley'd. I remember that year. I got Gurley.
Yes. Yeah, and those are the things that happen.
What can you do, Dennis? You work your ass off, you get to the championship, and you go against a 5 touchdown craziness. You cannot, other than betting, and try, if you're worried about that, you might go to the casino or something and make a sports bet and try to cover your loss a little bit, but it's nothing you can do. So good process versus, the bad outcome versus the good. Just make sure versus a bad process. That's what we're working on.
Yeah, and this is why if I'm betting $1,000 on fantasy football this year, I'm not playing 2 $500 leagues.
Oh no.
I'm probably not even playing 10 $100 leagues.
No.
I'm playing 20 $50 leagues.
Yeah.
Yes, it's more work when it comes to setting your lineups and doing everything else. But now I know that I have eliminated as much of the chaos as I can, because I've spread my risk out. Now, if I do 20 teams at $50 each and I use 20 different processes,
that can get crazy.
I've put myself in the same boat as if I'm playing one league for $1,000.
No.
Okay, but if you use the same process, the same concepts, the same strategies, different players,
right,
And here's the thing is like, I don't care. Like if I get 5 drafts in a row and I've got the 12th pick in the draft and Malik Neighbors falls, let's say Malik Neighbors and Amon-Ra St. Brown both fall to me at pick 12. I'm drafting both of those every single time. Pick 12 and pick 13 are going to be my stud wide receivers. And I'm going to do that every single time. I'm not going to worry about diversification.
And Dennis, we probably should talk. I don't know, maybe you could do an article, but if people want to prospect for a new format like Superflex
Yes.
or auction,
Yes.
then
Yes.
take one or two of them and just see what happens.
Yes.
But don't, oh, I'm gonna do half. No, just 18 this way, your process, and maybe two the new way. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
prospecting's all about.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis and I have done that almost every year. We've
Oh, yeah.
tried different strategies. For draft night out, we're going to try something different this year. Dennis is really good at Superflex, really good. I've seen it. So we're going to let him prospect into that this year and see what happens.
Yeah, it's just a matter of not letting myself get hung up on quarterbacks early in a Superflex draft.
But Dennis, I've seen you make some brave picks.
I've had drafts in Superflex leagues. I did this last year where I didn't take a quarterback until round 5.
That's what I'm saying. I've seen you make some brave picks.
Now,
again, people can get scared, Dennis.
Oh, yeah.
And start hitting on 16 and or hit on 17 and standing on 16. Exactly opposite. People get crazy in Superflex.
Yeah, and usually in Superflex, if I've got an opportunity to take one of the top 6 quarterbacks, I'm grabbing one of the top 6 quarterbacks. I'm not going to deviate. And if I've got a chance to take 2, let's say people get crazy. And of the top 8, I can get 2 of those. I'm going round 1 and round 2 at quarterback. Like I'm taking the best player available. Position scarcity says the quarterbacks get a little bump. So a quarterback who I think can hit a 90 MVP is now worth like 120, 110 at other positions. It's just a matter of sticking to your best player available scheme. You're less likely to go non-quarterback until you've got 2 of them. But I don't let the quarterback position beat me in a Superflex. If I don't have top 6 to 8 talent left, I'm drafting 10th and they're all gone. Thank you very much. I'm taking the best running backs and wide receivers and I'll figure something out. Last year, my key to that strategy was Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield. Goff is still a great bargain. This year, Baker is no longer. So I'll end up with, in Superflex this year, I know already, I'll end up with a lot of Goff, a lot of Jordan Love. Maybe some J.J. McCarthy.
It actually came.
Maybe some Cam Ward. Like the idea is I want upside with my second and third quarterbacks if I'm taking them late. But, if I can get a Hurts or a Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, sign me up. And then if I can get Mahomes as my second quarterback, I'm feasting on that all day. That's the kind of strategy you need to see. And, every Superflex draft is so much different. Like redraft, you get into a rhythm. Superflex drafts can be so different from one to the next, but you gotta be you gotta be fearless. And sometimes it doesn't work. And
Nope.
sometimes you get done and you're going, oh my Lord. But that just means you're stronger at running back and wide receiver. And in those cases, I'm taking 4 or 5 quarterbacks because I need to play the matchup game. And this year, if I get stuck and I don't end up with a good core of quarterbacks, I might be taking guys like Milroe from Seattle, Milton from Dallas, even though they're backups. They're clearly backups. They're not going to start unless there's an injury. Now, Seahawks, if Darnold stinks, maybe they run Milroe out there. Milton's not coming into the game unless Dak's hurt. Dak get off to a slow start. He ain't getting benched.
Yep.
But if there's an injury, both of those guys have upside. And they'll be great 4th or 3rd quarterbacks in Superflex this year because you're betting on what's to come. You're not betting on what is happening week 1. Yep. And if you end up in a Superflex and you only can start one quarterback, that's what you do. You got to play the best player available game, and that's been my secret to success in Superflex, is being bold and being daring. Sometimes you're wrong, and that's why you play 20, $50 leagues and that $1,000 league.
Agree.
So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. You can check out my articles, my player versus player. If you have a suggestion for a player versus player, send it to me. I'm going to do another wave of these in late July as we get going. And, we're going to see how that goes. And also check out all of this stuff from the professor. Check out some of his video lessons. I don't care whether you're new to fantasy football or a cagey 20-year veteran, you will learn a lot from the professor's lesson plan on fantasy. And then come on back here for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks. Okay. I think we did everything we needed to do.
That was solid, man. That was solid. We covered a lot. We covered
a lot of ground here. I'm going to shut down because it's 5 o'clock. I'm sure my wife's ready.
Yeah.